We are now streaming live on YouTube, and if we just wait one moment to update the Unitar website, we'll be ready to begin. And we are live on YouTube with session 6 of the SDG Learn conference, and I will hand it over to our colleagues at the IAEA.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Loreta Stankevičiūtė, and this is my colleague Mario Tot, and we are both from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Today, we will share with you some information on the capacity building program for energy planning offered by the International Atomic Energy Agency. So IAEA has member states that have nuclear power and that do not have nuclear power programs. So you may ask why countries without nuclear power are member states of the IAEA. In many cases, this is due to major development challenges, such as, for example, national needs to address hunger, to deal with water shortages, to combat health-related issues such as cancer, Ebola, Zika viruses, or the ongoing pandemics of COVID-19, where agency supports 120 member states by providing the nuclear-related RT-PCR technology used for detection of the infections. So nuclear technology, through its various applications, can assist addressing these challenges. And in this way, IAEA helps countries to increase scientific and technical capacities, which enhance countries' socio-economic development. Regarding energy planning, IAEA support in this area has more than 50 years of history behind. And the main message that we want to convey here is that agency is not there to do something instead of member states. We are there to support them, to provide them with tools so that countries themselves are capable to analyze their future strategies and to select the strategies that best suit their social and economic development and targets. As part of our services for capacity building program in energy planning, agency has its own set of energy system analysis tools, for which we are fully responsible in terms of development and enhancements. I will briefly discuss those tools in the next slide. We also provide trainings in the use of these tools. They can be of different nature. It can be distance learning. It can be a field training or face-to-face trainings. It can be additional expert support or some regional workshops, fellowships where national experts visit the agency or visit institutions that are capable of providing trainings in their own regions. The main idea with capacity building program is to keep the national team under constant training for 2 years or more, depending how country decides to engage in this activity. And at the end of the project, what is important is that there is a study that usually is done by the country itself. It also serves, let's say, a proof for that country that they are capable of doing that study. But what is more important for us is that the capacities are enhanced so that experts who work and contribute directly in their countries, in their ministries or other organizations that are in charge of energy planning and energy policy. Also, we provide technical assistance in elaboration of energy strategies or in conducting national and regional studies. But again, we do not do the work for them, but rather assist in coordination of this work by working with the country. As part of capacity building program, we also maintain information references of energy and economic data. And we also try to understand and explain to member states the compatibility of nuclear technologies with national sustainable development objectives and greenhouse gas mitigation goals. Most of the capacity building activities for energy planning are conducted through the Technical Cooperation Program in the framework of national, regional, and interregional projects. TC program, Technical Cooperation Program, is the primary vehicle for the agency to deliver its services to member states. Over the years, we provided capacity building to more than 140 countries worldwide use our agency tools and models and tools. At the heart, let's say, of our capacity building program and efforts are energy assessment tools. So this is the suite of IAEA tools that you can see on your slide. This suite is designed to cover various stages of the energy planning process. So from data collection, statistics, energy balances, to energy demand analysis and projections, as well as analysis of energy supply options to satisfy the demand. We also offer, let's say, some tools that can be used in a faster way for a simplified analysis to get sort of the first idea of future energy strategies. And we also offer more specific tools, for example, focusing exclusively on power generation, investment, and expansion planning, or on the analysis of environmental impacts of a particular power plant and analysis of its financial viability, or a tool that quantifies macroeconomic effects associated with the construction and operation of a particular project. So when we provide these tools to member states, we don't just provide them with the link to download that tool, we also give them a full documentation. Most of our tools have also this multilingual user interfaces. We also offer online support in case there is an issue with the tool. Irrespective, for example, if country has a project with us or it doesn't have a project with us, we will answer the questions related to these tools. It is also important to say that our tools are technology neutral. They can be applied to any country. Size of the country also does not matter if it's a small country or a big country, if it is a developing country or developed country. These tools are equally applicable and can be tailored to the needs, priorities, and relevant policy questions of the countries. We also share these tools with some international organizations, and we establish some good working relations, cooperation with those institutions. Important to note, very important to note that these tools are provided without any cost to member states. Also important to say that our capacity building program does not have to be always centered around these particular tools. In case country uses another set of tools, we will still be supporting them with the capacity building services in energy system analysis and planning. The ultimate goal for us is to help analysts in member states to improve their analysis so that they are better equipped to face questions posed to them by decision makers, let's say. We also have more tools or concepts that we help with or provide to countries. For example, indicators for sustainable energy development can help countries understand if they choose a certain path or a certain policy, then how this policy contributes to sustainable development. Let's say track the progress. Yeah. We also support countries in thru integrated methodology, climate, land, energy, and water. This methodology is dedicated to analyze these complex interactions between various key resources and climate change. We also develop guidelines and offer workshops for these strategic environmental assessments. So now I will give the floor to my colleague, Mario, who will present the first example of our capacity building activity.
Thanks, Loretta, and good afternoon and good evening to everyone. First example is about our study and our work related to Africa. We are all aware that African region is a very specific in terms of development needs. There are many needs in many areas, and one of the areas is certainly development of energy systems. And in this area, we try to intervene by providing capacity building and tools for energy planning. This particular work was done over the last about 5 years, although support to African member states dates back even much further back before 2014. We had a regional project in which 34 countries of African continents participated. And inside this project, we had several aims. We wanted to make sure that all countries, after certain training, reach comparable level of expertise and knowledge in energy system analysis. And by bringing together experts from different countries, we wanted to improve communication among those countries and cooperation, so that countries in between themselves can discuss and can cooperate and can design their energy futures jointly. We provided energy demand and supply analysis training inside this, with a special focus on power system analysis, where we wanted to compare and assess various supply and trade options to meet electricity demand and use very big locally available energy resources that might not be possible to be used inside one country. So cooperation is necessary to develop infrastructure that would allow that energy products are moved across the continent. So we considered alternative scenarios, taking into account needs for sustainable development. So not just needs of regional integration and increase of accessibility and affordability of energy, but also security, stability of supply, and minimization of environmental impacts and stress that energy systems can pose to human health and biodiversity. This particular work that I will try to explain a bit more was done for West African sub-region, which consists of 15 countries. This region can be compared to many other sub-regions in Africa. So there are diverse energy and mineral resources, but these resources are not evenly distributed among countries. So some countries are in abundance of maybe some fossil fuels or hydro resources, while other countries do not have such type of opportunity to use resources to satisfy their energy demand. So first idea is how to cooperate, how to bring this energy closer to citizens. Access to energy and electricity is of a prime importance for any social economic development in any country. And in this region, we also saw large disparity in electricity access, not just among countries, but also inside countries between urban and rural areas. And it is fair to say that in many African countries, average customer pays relatively high prices for relatively lower quality of service in terms of reliance on fossil fuels, high prices, obsolete generation assets, and also underdeveloped grid, which influences directly reliability of supply and possibility of industry to use competitive energy sources. What is specific for West African sub-region is that they have really strong regional institutions. So they already started cooperation in that direction. So our work was complementary to the work conducted by already existing regional institutions, and we also brought participation of some other international organizations into this project. We had a principal objective of case study that we developed was that we use tools, that we use analytical tools, that we offer numbers so that experts can present various options to policy and decision makers and explain then what is the magnitude of effort that is needed to bring energy to citizens over a certain period of time, in this case over the next 20 to 30 years, and also suggest cost optimal expansion strategies for electricity generation and start and enhance communication among countries towards realization of projects of regional importance. We analyzed requirements to reach a sustainable for all target of universal access to electricity by 2030-2035 by reducing the disparity in availability of modern energy services among countries and within countries. We also wanted to explore options how to improve limited electricity access in the region, and at the same time how to keep environment under how to keep environmental impact to minimum. Support that was provided by our agency throughout this project is very similar to the support provided in other projects of this type. So we provided our tools. In this case, we used two tools: MIND tool for energy demand analysis and message tool for electricity supply analysis. And we offered various types of the trainings. On average, we would have 4 regional workshops under this project, plus some targeted expert missions or national trainings where we would estimate that there is a need to enhance local capacity. All these trainings were consisting of online or e-learning and field training or face-to-face training. Usually all these trainings, each training session lasts for about 2 weeks. It is also important to notice that it is not our agency that supplies data to countries. So we work with national teams. They are responsible for data collection, data verification, validation. We help them, we guide them, we give them advices where to find those data, how to improve data collection among institutions, how to estimate if those data reflect reality, and how to improve data that are maybe of not acceptable quality or missing data. We also we developed for each country national models for energy demand and electricity supply, and then we also connected all these national models into one multinational model. Throughout the project, we provided our support in running the models, in assessing data, in creating scenarios. And also we provided overall coordination among countries, because when we entered the region, there were regional institutions, but experts among themselves didn't have any platform for cooperation, let's call it like that. So we initiated communication among the experts. So we try to improve cooperation among countries in this way. And at the end, when countries created models, run scenarios, we help them also publish a report, which is available for download on our web page. Now I will say a few words about work that was done. So it is clear that energy demand is driven by social and economic development. In West Africa, what is characteristic that population is expected to more than double by 2050. So that gives you an idea how big will be pressure on governments to provide adequate infrastructure so that all these people and societies can have access to modern energy. At the same time, there will be big change and in the urbanization level in the region, and we are expected to see that by 2050, 2/3 of the population in West Africa will live in urban areas. And this gives another imperative, how to timely develop energy projects, because energy projects really do need large lead time in terms of planning, preparation, implementation, and then they also have a very long lifetime, so they stay for a long in our energy system. So whatever we decide today, whatever technology we choose today, this technology will be in the operation for the next 10, 20, maybe even 30 years. Another component that we considered in energy demand analysis is, of course, economic development. It is a very dynamic area in African countries. Our expectation in this analysis was that GDP, gross domestic product, will triple by 2030, and at the same time that standard of living will improve by double. In the GDP per capita will improve by double by 2030. So meaning that people will have double money available for spending. And part of this spending will also go for energy purposes. When we are talking about improvement of electricity access, we considered two scenarios. One scenario, we call it business as usual, and this scenario is continuation of historical trends. Let's picture it that way. And to the contrast of this scenario, we were looking at a universal access or sustainable energy for all electricity demand scenarios. And this scenario demonstrates improved economic cooperation at sub-regional level. So it's not just improved electricity access in terms of percentage of people that have access to energy, but there are also some assumptions behind this scenario, how to reach this improved access, and this is translated into economic development. We concluded that by this improved cooperation and aligned economic development throughout the region, it is possible to increase electricity access, and it is possible to increase also amount. It is a consequence also. This will lead to an increase of electricity demand. So there is a question, so how to supply this demand, how to make it economically viable, how to make it competitive for households, and how to make it competitive for service sector and industry in West Africa. With this, we entered into development of electricity supply strategies. We considered 4 main scenarios, and each scenario adds another element to the starting scenario. So we started with reference demand, historical trends. We see a large dependence on fossil fuels, and we see relatively low cooperation between countries, so very low exchange of energy among countries. So we considered what would be the consequence if for this demand we improved cooperation. We managed to bring some interconnection lines. The next step was, okay, if we reinforce economic cooperation, how that will reflect in universal access demand. And at the end, if we also take into account environment, so how we could limit environmental stress and keep it at the level of business as usual development. Meaning that in this last scenario, which is the most complete scenario, we achieve targets and we do not increase costs beyond business as usual scenario, and we at the same time keep our environment in a decent condition. So main message after we conducted this analysis was that with a careful design of policies and cooperation among countries, it is possible to unlock local large-scale energy resources like hydro and gas, make electricity available to practically whole region by 2030, 2035. We reach 95 to 100% of electricity access. That will translate into increased electricity demand, but by pursuing cooperation among countries, we would keep costs at the level that does not go beyond business as usual scenario, and also that limits environmental stress, in this case CO2 emission, above the levels that we are expected to see if each country continues with their national development targets. And with this, I will just give you an idea what are possible steps in the future, because African member states are interested that we continue with this cooperation. So this project will continue in the future. We think that we managed to show to national experts and also to national policy and decision makers that knowledge is there, knowledge is locally available, that those experts are capable to analyze energy systems, they are capable to participate in discussions, that further improvements, of course, are possible, that we can enlarge this analysis on other energy subsectors and organize follow-up workshops to present results, and to further reinforce communication and cooperation among national experts, institutions, policy, and decision makers in this region. So this was about our regional experience in which we tried to help countries. And now Loretta will give you an idea of a bit different type of the project.
Okay, thank you, Mario. So now we move from Western Africa, we go to the region of Caribbean and a case study of Antigua and Barbuda. So this was a national project. This was a national project. It was a 2-year project held in 2018, 2019, with the aim of strengthening the capacity of the national team to update energy policy development and sustainable energy action plan. There was a team of 9 people who consistently followed the capacity building program. The team was a comprehensive team in a sense that it consisted from representatives from ministries, also from statistical division, as well as power utility. It was also a very dedicated team who put a lot of efforts in learning and doing the study. As a background, I would say that the government of Antigua and Barbuda has published a national energy policy in 2011, which sets out the country's sustainability vision, policies, and goals. And among the principal goals were the energy cost reduction, diversification of energy supply, and environmental protections. So these goals were the ones that guided basically the overall of this project as well. Few words about Antigua and Barbuda. Antigua and Barbuda is an island nation consisting of 2 main islands and several smaller uninhabited islands. It is an upper middle income country with a population of slightly more than 90,000. Its economy is heavily dependent on tourism. It accounts for some 80% of GDP. And as many islands, Antigua and Barbuda faces a number of common issues for the energy sector. In particular, the country has no indigenous fossil fuel resources and is highly dependent on imported petroleum-based fuels for its energy supply. Consequently, it experiences volatile and often high energy costs. As well, nearly 100% of its electricity is being produced from the imported heavy fuel oil, which results in high per capita greenhouse gas emissions. To mention that there is also no regular continuation of the statistical activities, including energy data collection necessary for consistent and regular energy balance compilation. The overall energy intensity in the country is rather elevated, and of course there is potential for improved energy efficiency in all sectors of the economy. Regarding the energy planning, these practices across institutions and stakeholders are not that well established and coordinated. Given these challenges and having in mind these goals of national energy policy, our capacity building program for the 2 years was structured around 3 main elements. So jointly with the team to work on improving national energy data necessary for planning. Indeed, the baseline statistics is the foundation of good planning and energy system modeling, as input data for case studies or models and for calibration purposes. Other 2 elements, these include the model-supported analysis of energy demand and energy supply. After extensive consultation with national counterparts for the demand analysis and projections, it was decided to develop scenarios which include improvements in energy efficiencies, as well as increasing introduction of electric mobility in the transport sector. For the supply analysis, the country clearly possesses abundant renewable energy sources, such as wind and solar. Nonetheless, the challenges also exist to harness these potentials, in particular in terms of financing and in terms of integrating them into the Antigua's current power system. So the scenarios for supply analysis were constructed to reflect this higher penetration of renewables over time, and at the same time to analyze the system responses needed in terms of backup capacities and storages, as well as to analyze also the implications on energy costs and on greenhouse gas emissions. In order to conduct these activities, agency provided some support in terms of tools and trainings. So 3 tools were selected out of this IAEA suite of energy system assessment tools to analyze the issues specific to this country. So it was the EBS tools, Energy Balance Studio, for compiling the energy balance, MIT for analyzing energy demand and projections, and ESST, it's a simulation tool for analyzing the energy supply options. Several training sessions were organized to cover each of those topics. So those activities range from online trainings to field trainings, expert missions and fellowships, where members of the national team stayed at the agency here in Vienna for at least 4 weeks for continued training and working on their study away from their offices. This is also sort of the objective of fellowships, to keep the team a little bit away from their offices so that they can exclusively focus on the study. In total, the national team had around 8 to 10 cumulative weeks of cumulative trainings per year. And in between, the team was also asked to complete certain tasks. Another activity offered by the agency as part of the capacity building program are so-called scientific visits. So the aim here is that the national team visits comparable country with well-established planning practices in order to learn and improve their practices back at home. So in the framework of these projects, 4 members of the national team from Antigua and Barbuda visited the island of Mauritius and got acquainted with their energy planning processes and brought back many, let's say, good practices, in particular in terms of energy statistics and analysis, as well as stakeholder interaction, cooperation between different organizations, as well as renewable integration. Finally, we also provided support in reviewing and coordinating the presentation of final energy study at the national workshop that was held in the end of the projects in Antigua and Barbuda. This is the usual, I would say, practice to end our projects, when basically the national team presents the results of the study to broader public, not just to the core team. So some words on the work done. So basically, energy needs, as you know, and development of energy sector is closely related to social and economic development. Main drivers of energy demand are demography, economic development and its structure, as well as lifestyle changes. In Antigua and Barbuda, population growth is not so high. Distribution among rural and urban population is expected to remain stable. At the same time, economy is expected to expand. And as economy grows faster than population, standard of living will also increase, which will influence the energy consumption. Economic structure, nevertheless, is expected to remain similar over the next 30 years. So for the demand analysis, national team employed the scenario analysis. Scenario analysis intends to capture outcomes, uncertainties, and necessary policy interventions. So by taking into account all these demand drivers, several demand scenarios were developed, reflecting in particular, as I mentioned, various energy efficiency measures and various penetrations of e-mobility in the future. And that resulted with the energy demand projections seen in the upper figure. Overall demand, that is the final energy demand, is not expected to increase a lot because the economy structure remains similar. You have also rather stable demography, technological improvements, energy efficiency. So all this will not lead to a big increase in demand. But still, demand will increase, and this is important because what you have today as energy supply will not be enough in the future. And inside this overall demand projection, the team also analyzed specifically power sector. So how all these changes will be translated in the power sector? How can also we analyze this in the next step, the supply options for electricity demand projected. Some important conclusions here from this electricity demand is that basically by active promotion of the energy efficiency measures, it is possible in the long term to reduce by 30% the overall electricity demand as compared to the business as usual scenario. So these are the energy efficiency measures that were analyzed. So solar thermal systems for hot water, LED lights, electric pumps for water supply, and efficient air conditioning. It was concluded by the team that there are several measures that are very effective, that are profitable in a rather short time. But in order to, let's say, implement them, some of the government activities will be still needed. These activities can range from just pure promotion, or it could be regulation, introducing some standards, labeling, or maybe even providing some financial incentives, maybe tax reliefs or subsidies. For the electricity supply, the analysis of the options for the future was rather obvious since the country has no indigenous fossil fuels. So in the future, if they want to go towards clean energy system and reduce dependency on imported fuels, they have to choose wind and solar. But this automatically translates into some issues for security of supply, need for backup capacities or storages to avoid unserved demand when the production of electricity from renewables does not necessarily match the demand. So this analysis was also conducted by the team, especially to try to finding this balance between storages that are still rather expensive and backup capacities to basically avoid this unserved demand that results from the hourly analysis that we will see in the next slide. So indeed, it was shown that there is some seasonal wind patterns which would require large storage requirements. So in this figure, you can see that there is lack of energy in the end of the year, shown as unserved demand in the top figure, and surplus of electricity from wind in the beginning of the year, shown in the bottom of the figure. So in case we want to satisfy this unserved demand only with batteries, then the cost would be very expensive. To reduce the average supply cost, a solution might be in finding the efficient combination of backup capacities with certain level of battery storage to eliminate this unserved demand. Especially as time passes and batteries cost go down, this analysis should be renewed. Some conclusions and future works. So the results of the project were successfully presented and conveyed to broader public in this final national workshop. And one of the conclusions of this workshop was that the results of this study will be presented to the cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda for further policy considerations and decision-making. Energy planning practices across institutions and stakeholders was started to being established with this project, and the coordination started to work. And project activities reinforce communication and cooperation among different national experts and other relevant institutions. So country, I would say, reach a certain level, but there are still areas in which this work can be improved. Maybe additional scenarios or some other analysis need to be conducted. And currently, we are also working with counterparts from this country to develop a new project for the next cycle of technical cooperation, which is in 2022-2023. What is also specific for such small countries is that they have relatively small human resource base. And it is very important to keep this continuous education and training of this small resource base. And this knowledge also obtained in this project can be shared in the regions in the other small islands of the Caribbean, as well as other small islands, let's say worldwide. And maybe as a conclusion of this overall presentation, I would just like to point in 3 sentences some takeaways. So basically, energy planning is not a one-time exercise. It should be a continuous process aligned with national policy. It should be repeated and refined over time. It is also a time-consuming process. It cannot be done over the night. but agency always stays available to provide this type of support to member states so that countries are capable themselves to do this type of analysis. Thank you.
Thanks, Loretta. And during our presentation, we received a couple of questions. We understand that we have about 10 minutes, 5 minutes, so we will take 2 or 3 questions. So one question that maybe Loretta you can elaborate on is availability of the tools. So are tools available to everyone?
Our tools are available to member states. They are available cost-free, so they're available without any additional cost. However, tools should be used not for the profit purposes. Yeah, not for commercial purposes. So, in case you are interested, there is I think an email here also, so you could just contact us and maybe we could inform you. We could give you some more elaborate information on how to share, how you could obtain these tools.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe additional information. So there are many countries are members of the IAEA, and in each country there is a focal point, national liaison officer, and on country side, and then on our side, in technical cooperation department, we have project management officers, which are in charge for a certain country. You can contact those people, and you can also contact us on the email that is available on our screen. And the second question was related to maybe more elaboration on barriers or obstacles that we encounter during our capacity building work. And I would say, as Loretta emphasized, capacity building is not a one-time task, is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process, and in that sense, we face many obstacles. One obvious obstacle is availability of human resources in countries. In some countries, we have very few experts in the administration that are available to participate in our trainings or that have a background knowledge. So this is one of the obstacles. That's why we also try to cooperate with academia, with universities, and we are also transferring our tools to universities, and some universities use our tools to support their various teaching programs. Also coordination among team members inside one country, communication among governmental departments and entities, this can also be problematic. And as usual, data availability and also data access. So often data exist, but are scattered among different institutions. And in order to have any meaningful planning, we really have to rely on some reliable data. And this can be a problem. Also, continuity of a project team is a bit of a problem. All developing countries are very dynamic, and people quickly change in administration, in companies. So there is a very large flow of people, and this presents a challenge, but it also represents an opportunity, because we are to some extent glad to see that someone who was in our training managed to go to some other place, maybe to find a better job, maybe to develop some business. And these people gain something from our activities. And we also hope that those people will be in a position to share this knowledge and skills in the future, and that they will remember where they started with their energy system analysis adventure. Can we maybe answer one more question? Okay, we will take one more question. And there was a question about a large discrepancy between input, in a sense, capacity building that we are providing, and also very little output. This is sometimes very difficult to estimate, we explained that our projects usually last for 2 years, but we encourage countries that they stay longer in this process, especially countries that are at the beginning of this type of training and at the beginning of energy system analysis. But we do see positives. In many countries, we have utilities or ministries using our tools, staying in contact with us, producing analysis, advising governmental bodies, advising their companies on investments, on future steps to be taken. And it is also important to, Loretta emphasize this, in all this work, we try to cooperate and coordinate with other international programs because there are many international organizations acting in this area. Each institution or organization has its own preferences or modalities. Our main modality is we are seeing experts, national experts, as the main products of our work. Study is there to prove that they are capable, but what remains in the country is really knowledge, tools, and skills. And with this, I think we are obliged to close this part, and we are handing over to our partner in this session. Thank you.
Hello, so the presentation for Thomas will be presented remotely and it's been pre-recorded, and we're going to play that right now.
Participatory research can do to help. Bonjour à tous. Hello everybody. So now we will look on what the participatory research can do to help to implementing solution of renewable energies or to help universal access to energies. So I will present a recorded presentation in order to provide a good quality of the understanding, and in same time the presentation is running. I will look the remarks on the chat screen, so you can ask your questions during the presentation, and I will look them and prepare a first slot of information in order to answering all the questions you wrote during the presentation. So what we call participatory research is now a new format of education and research activities that allow to produce real solutions with non-scientists acting on these researches in presence of scientists. And the scientists are the guides, and the citizens who are the participants to these activities of participatory research are the people who will learn by doing and changing the world in same time. So we talk about participatory research, participatory science sometime, and sometimes too about citizen science. But as you will understand during the presentation, we will have some different levels of participatory research. So the aim of the presentation of today is to understand how participatory research operation of some weeks or of 1 year or more years can help to to implement energies in a developing country or in a development country. So, to start, few words about our NGO, Objective Sciences International, in order to understand what we provide, what we propose in general, before to look about the question of energies and the question of participatory science solutions in details. So OSI is an NGO founded in 1992 and now present since long years ago on all the continents. And we are recognized as a special consultative status by ECOSOC of United Nations since 2011. The headquarters is in Geneva, and we have local groups in the countries where we are actors, and we can help to create a new local group in a country where we don't have operation for the moment, but where people want to create operations with us. And these local groups generate employment and local economy in the domain of education, research, scientific research, but also in the fields, in the topic of ecology, in the topics of techniques. Finally, in all the topics where we could decide to launch an operation of participatory research. The presence through the world is depending the seasons and depending the partnership we have with laboratories under the format of expeditions or under the format of school trip or under the format of local camps for teenagers, for kids, for adults, for families, for employees of companies. And as you can see, we are present in different countries and continents or under destination or under local activity where local people create and drive the local participatory research operation. In Africa, as you can see, we have a lot of countries now where we established or we are building now local group. But in fact, we have other countries we cannot see on this map now, where already people are now exchanging with us to create local groups. So we encourage you to contact with us. You will have the email contact at the end of the presentation if you are interested to join with these people. In South America, also we have some projects in other countries not indicated on this map. For example, Ecuador or Bolivia for project on the rights of nature, for example. And it is also the situation in Europe and in Central Asia, where we have other countries interested, like Indonesia, for example, or Laos, where we work about the topic of the relation between elephants and people. So, how we organize our participatory science projects? We design them for absolutely all type of publics. So we have some specific operations for all specific publics, but we decline a participatory science project in all the type of activity we need to have in order to touch all the publics. We brought absolutely all type of thematics of science, including hard science or fundamental researchers or applied researchers. We design the camp or the school trip or other type of operation in order to solve real problematics. And some of these problematics can connect different thematics. For example, we have some project really pluri-thematics, transversal, needing informatics, computing, and ecology, or needing geology and astronomy, etc. So we connect this participatory science project with scientific institutions from the country where is operation running. So, for example, if we have, like we have in Vancouver, in Canada, a participatory research project on quality of water, we lead this operation in partnership with local institutions of Vancouver. If at the east of Canada, in Quebec, like we do, we are following the Gulf. We are working with National Park of Canada, who have a dimension of research also, and not only of conservation. So all our operation is driven in connection with an existing public or private institution from the academic world of research. The team who is guiding this type of operation is a team coming from the science, but also coming from the animation of groups. So we have a dream team composed by students, researchers, teachers, facilitators, and together they constitute a team of group leaders who have, in the same time, the capacities in the question of techniques, and in the same time, the abilities in the question of leading a group, animate people, animate adults, animate teenagers, animate children, families, etc. So we are, like you understood, all over the world, and it is an aim for us to continue to be. And we contribute like this to local economy and local ecology solutions. So why? Because we generate a local activity where local people design and propose operations like camps, school trips, etc., to local publics at local price, local cost. And it's cheapest to organize the things locally and to create a short circuit economy. And it's in the same time, the better to involve people and to enable the local people to be autonomous and to recuperate, to take this toolbox and to develop local solutions. In the same time, they generate local employment. And also now, because we have nearly 30 years old of experience now, we saw some old publics became after guides. So some teenagers of our science camps are now guides of our science camps and became researchers, teachers, and it's very, very, very interesting to consolidate a local economy. Well, what is very interesting is this type of actions. You will see examples very soon. This type of actions allow this citizen public, including the kids, including the children, to publish results on reviews, scientific reviews, inside articles. They are the contributors. So our participants, adults, teenagers, and kids, write and publish articles about their discoveries on scientific reviews. And it's very, very, very interesting, not only for the motivation of the publics, but also for the community of the researchers, the scientific communities. It's one of the main visible point of the fact that participatory research is really, really efficient. In order to connect and to touch the maximum of publics, we do really, it's really important, we do operations inside the existing format of the economy, inside the existing pipes. So if in a country, all the last year of high school go to a trip, because it is a tradition, in this country, we will propose a scientific trip for the last year of the high school pupils. If in another country, the tradition is to send the kids in holidays, the summer, we will provide summer camps on science, and we will provide following the bear camps, climbing the tree camps, robotics camps, astronomy camps, dinosaurs, paleontology camps, etc., etc. If in another country, it's more in local destination school trip every year in April, or at this moment in this country, we will provide school trip in April on scientific topics to lead real research. It is one of the key factors in order to have a success, because we have the objective to touch the maximum of people in order to make citizen science greater and greater. Now, here you have one example of what we do in research in Central Asia, in Nepal and in Kyrgyzstan, and soon in other countries where we have contacts interested in China, India, etc. Following the snow leopard, so what we call the expeditions Pantera. So since 2006, we send local citizens from Kyrgyzstan, from Nepal since 2019, and citizens from all over the world, from Russia, from Belgium, from Switzerland, from USA, from Canada, from Mexico, etc. In June, July, August, September, and on the side, crossing pass in the mountain up to 4,000 meters high, and they follow the snow leopard, as you can see with one of the pictures, with traps, photographic traps, and with genetic analysis, because we come back with the hair, we come back with the sheets, and we take all type of proof of the species. And now, so 15 years after the start of this expedition, finally we are the biggest database of genetic on this species, and the international collaboration we have with Pantera US, with the Snow Leopard Trust, with the Federation of all the universities of the 12 countries where the government are involved in the conservation of the snow leopard. This collaboration allows us to feed them with a lot of data we cannot have without a citizen science. It's a thing it's very important to understand. The citizen science can provide things or data we cannot have with traditional research. And second example is in Europe, where local people is involved in local questions, following the evolution of the biodiversity in function of the return of the wolf. So in Switzerland, in one valley called Val d'Anniviers, in canton of Valais, Valais, in south of Switzerland, every summer and every springtime with a school trip, the participants evaluate the presence and, in function of this, the evolution of the biodiversity in all type of species. So vegetation, insects, big animals, fungus, all type of species. And what is very interesting here is that these kids of 7 years old could identify now more than 800 species in this valley, where the scientists couldn't do this. And as we could see in the snow leopard example, it's more for adults. As we can see here, it's also for the kids, and the kids produce these very, very interesting results. And all the identification are with a proof, so with a picture or with a sample. We produce the data and we publish the results. So these two examples was not in the energy, it was in biodiversity. So now we could ask what could provide the participatory research operations to sustain energies. In energies for the future, we know we have a lot of different technologies, very interesting, like solar energy, fuel with algae, geothermy, biogas, etc., etc., etc. And we know also that what will change the situation and make these solutions winning solutions will be smart solutions like distributed power plants or this concept of web energy, etc. And in fact, we could see that the participatory science can generate an action of research by the citizens, and that this action of research connected with the schools, connected with the high school, connected with engineering schools, universities, with users, with deciders, with the industries, etc., will accelerate and facilitate the implementing of the solutions the government wanted to propose for his country on universal access to energies. What we realized also by doing through our experience is that the participatory science helps the governmental policies, including the governmental policies about energy. Why? Because by launching a participatory research action on the topic, on the project, we create a contact with the population and with all the level of population. That generate interest, that generate a sense. So the people have a sense for these actions. They know why we are asking these questions, what we want to solve. And now after this contact is established, thanks these participatory science operations, we manage to involve these citizens. Also, every time, all the levels, so the kids, the teens, the teenagers, the parents, the professionals, the researchers, the deciders, etc. So all these type of people are involved in the project of citizen science. So they want to participate to the questions, to find solutions, to implement prototypes, to test the different energies in the school, at home, in the neighborhood, in nature, etc. And they become self-actors of the projects. And at this level, we find really what we find in all type of citizen science operations. So sensitization, solicitation of the brain about all the concepts that sustain the topic. So in this example, energy, etc. So after this level of involving, we can enable all these people on the topic. So if we lead a participatory research operation on the topics of the energy the government wants to implement in the country, we will see the people who will understand why we want to do this, understand the technology, and who are able to take in charge the project themselves. We enable them on their technical capacities, we enable them on their knowledge, but also we enable them on their know-how about how to speak about this energy to other people, how to manage this energy, etc. And the participatory science will provide something very interesting, which is to go first the governmental project. So with autonomy, self-management, and the fact the people will take in charge themselves the project, will provide an easiest situation to implement and to make the new energies become users of the local population, because the customers, the clients of the solutions was involved in the designing or in the implementing of the solution. We can do a short detailing of what composes the participatory research. In participatory research, we will find all these type of elements, including scientific societies and universities, including all what is Fab Lab, science shop, all what turn on the do-it-yourself or hackathon dynamics. We can find elevation of conscience about the natural rules, about the question of evolution of the society in relation with the evolution of the planet. We can find a lot of educational questions and educational practices like involvement, empowerment, participatory democracy. And we can see also some really practices concepts like the format of travel, the format of the connection between different populations, crossing the borders, etc. So, like you can see, the participatory research is really rich, and can allow a lot of really interesting projects. What is interesting also to note about participatory science is the levels of involvement. you know all the mobile applications with a lot of people can provide a lot of data from where they are through these mobile applications. But as you can see, we have a lot of people involved with this type of mobile applications, but these people are not involved at the same level we can have them involved with other things, like for example, Citizen Science Club, where we touch less people, but where they can do more things by themselves, or where they can decide by themselves and create their own project. And something really interested is to organize school trip or summer camps, because we can touch more people and involve them more again. Because in a school trip, you can involve all the network of the schools through the country, in partnership with government, because you can organize a participatory project in partnership with the Ministry of Education. And you have all the kids or all the students for 1 week, for 2 weeks, or for a club inside the school for the year. So you can give them a lot of time, and they can decide a lot of things, and they can restitute and communicate back, feedback, what they found, what they discovered, what they designed, what they created, like prototypes, after the event, so at the end of the year, for example. And it is same for the summer camps, where you can touch a lot of people, and where you can produce a lot of very, very beautiful things, where the people are really involved. We can have the same question about the level of involvement that allow the project-centered pedagogy. You can do citizen science without project-centered pedagogy. You can do citizen science by making an event, or by making a mobile app, mobile application. It is really more interested if you organized your participatory research operations, leading them under the format of project-centered pedagogy, as the participant will be the actors and will be the deciders of the operation. And industrial education on the down at the left, industrial education is what you know as classical type of education in school. Everybody sit on the table and listening a teacher, and absolutely not provide involvement, because these informations don't make sense, and the pupils cannot self-identify. But a project-based learning, so where the kids, or where the teens, or where the students are the deciders of what they want to do, will provide a very magic situation. As they want to realize their project, they will need information, and as they need this information, they will look to this information and learn them, and they will keep this information for their life. Another element also very interesting in the participatory research operation is the fact you do a good deed. You can mobilize all your village, you can mobilize all your colleagues in an enterprise, or all your friends if you are a kid, and you act for the better of the society. So it's really good to have a good effect on the project. To lead a project, we need some type of operators. So in the NGO OSI, we contribute together a research program, an educational program, a development program, and together they can generate a scientific education operation under the format of participatory research. The research program provides the content, the research, and the educational program provide the frame, the place where to be, the leading of the educators, and the development program provide the participants or the funds to make people participate. And for the research program, we can work with an existing laboratory or create a new lab. As for the educational program, we can work with an existing NGO. We will give a mandate to this NGO or create a new NGO in the country where we need an educational program able to lead a participatory research operation in this country. Same for the development program, or we can use a partnership with an existing travel agency, for example, or we can create a sellers team locally. This team will go look at all the teachers of the school, will go contact all the families, etc., depending which type of public we want to touch with the. So we have steps to concretize, to make your project a reality. And these steps finally are simple. As you can see here, the first step is to look if in your country where you want to implement a participatory research operation or the topic you want to solve in your country exists or not a local group of the NGO Objective Sciences International. If a local group exists, you can join this local group, and this team have already the capacity to drive a participatory research project under a new topic in partnership with you. Or if a local group doesn't exist, we can create a new one, or with you, if you want to be involved with this, or with local people we can identify, and we can create a new local group, and this local group will be able to drive a participatory research project under your topics. The second step is to go from the draft to the project. So we debate on the draft and we consolidate the choices with people who are already involved in the topics, in the type of publics, in the country. So we use the good practices and we consolidate the draft and we design the project so the project can be communicated in advance. And by this time, in the same time, the project is communicated to the public because we need 18 months to communicate the project in order to have a first operation with the first group of public. In the same time, we proceed to the partnership. So we will train the co-operators involved in the project, and all these co-operators will use the OSI, the Objective Sciences International toolbox. And at the end, we start with the first pilot operation. So we drive the retro planning for the pilot operation. And this pilot operation will provide the proof of concept. And year after year, we can reiterate, continue what we want to keep and change what we want to change. And year after year, the operation is better and better. So now at the end of the presentation, I will answer to your question. Here you have 2 emails address, depending if you want information about a local group in your country, or if you want to propose a participatory science project, a citizen science operation, no depending the question of the local group, just about the project. These teams you connect with this address will help you and advise you in order to make your project a reality. And on the down of the slide, you have websites, the institutional website of the NGO, and in French and in English, the website where you can find the participatory science project we have in this moment. So now I propose you to exchange about your questions and your remarks. Thank you very much. And I hope to have good collaborations with you in the future.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'll pass it over to you.
Yes, and I saw a question in the chat from Emanuela, Jennifer, and Christina about the access for all the publics, the mixity, and the poverty line. So I'm very happy with this question because yes, we do the maximum to mix the publics, and what we do for this is to open the door, because some of publics trust not in themselves, so they think science is not for them or change the world is not for them, and we go in contact with them and we make them realize they can do it, and we make their hands on the science, and they realize they can do it. And we work hard for make the science more mixed with the girls, with the women, with all type of sub parts of the society. And it's very powerful because like this we reach what we call the community-based learning. So the learning is stronger because the publics learn, and sometimes they provide solutions to their own community. So after we change their point of view about the world, and we propose them also local solutions. So it's local economy, local projects. So we don't need money. In very poor countries or very poor regions of some countries, some people can be educators, scientific educators for local publics, and transform these publics in actors of their own future. So yes, it's very important for us. The citizen science could really be citizen science. I don't saw other questions, but if some of you have, I can answer. And of course, you can write us to our email.
So we'll let a few more minutes if we have any questions, but if not, we'll reach the end of the session. So if anyone has any closing questions, please put them on the Q&A, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. But if we don't have any further questions, I'd like to thank our panelists and our partners for putting together a fascinating presentation that was certainly enjoyed by all who watched. More links and copies of the presentation will be available on the SDG Learning website, and I am going to put that live later today. So you'll be able to access the presentations you've just watched, this recording, and some contact information for UNITAR. We can put you in contact with anyone else. And we have our colleagues from the IAEA joining us. Do you have any closing remarks? We'd just like to thank you for participating, of course.